WMGIC is a hackathon-style case competition, and it hopes to encourage interdisciplinary collaboration and for us to create innovative solutions on global issues.
This year's Global Innovation Challenge case topic is focused on Guatemala. Guatemala has one of the highest rates of malnutrition in the world and the highest crime rate.
And although we can meet in person in Williamsburg, I'm really glad that all of you guys can still do this, especially to the judges and mentors who are spending their week. 22 teams and about 90 students.
I can't tell you how thrilled I am. I know this is a very difficult time for all of us. WMGIC reminds us that life goes on, and when we return to some form of normalcy after this global pandemic, that the underlying development challenges that we face, they will still be present, and they may have been exacerbated. And so to address them will require really good ideas, hard work, and frankly, empirically informed research. So after a pretty rough 2 weeks, this event, more than the substance, which normally excites me, this event gives me hope.
Hi, everyone. My name is Thomas, and I'm the Executive Director of WMGIC 5. And thank you all so much for being here. And I apologize if I stumble a bit. It's currently 5 a.m. in the morning as I'm coming to all of you guys from Taiwan. And so without further ado, let's get started. So first of all, for those who attended our Korean Networking Expo, thank you so much. From 3 p.m. to 4:30, which was about an hour ago, we had about 30 tables of judges and mentors and our sponsors, and we saw some participants join. And for those who joined, thank you, and hope you guys enjoyed the experience meeting with your judges and mentors prior to the official start of our case competition, which is now. And so a little bit about WMGIC. So what is a Global Innovation Challenge? So WMGIC is a hackathon-style international sustainable development case competition aimed at encouraging interdisciplinary collaboration to create innovative solutions to current global issues. And this is currently our 5th year, and it was started by Sarah and Samu back in 2016, 2017 at William & Mary. And so they had this idea of trying to find innovative and sustainable solutions to challenge the traditional methods of international development. And so they pitched this idea of the case competition to IPTER, which is now the Global Research Institute, and they got a small fund. And so we've gone on since then, and this is now our 5th year. And so it wouldn't be possible for all of us to be here now without our current executive team. And so we're not a really big team of William & Mary students, only 10 of us. And so starting from the top left, we have Gus, Giselle, myself, Kieran, Kiefer, Ben, Yuche, Mike, Grace, and Hannah. And so a little bit about WMGIC this year. And so last year, which was the video that was playing at the beginning, last year, also around this time, as you guys all know, most of us college students got sent home with COVID-19. And last year, we were faced the decision of either canceling WMGIC or somehow turning WMGIC online in less than 2 weeks. And our team last year brilliantly done it before university institutions started back their classes, and professional organizations canceling their events. And last year, we were able to host about 20 teams of 100 students from William & Mary and UVA. But a year later now, looking back at the event, this year we have 32 teams compared to 20 teams last year. And surprisingly, we have 15 universities that are participating. And even as far as from Singapore, and from the UK. And WMGIC 1 started with only 9 judges and mentors and the keynote, but this year we've expanded it to 40. And so all 40 judges and mentors and our final judges that we're going to introduce later are truly professionals in their field. The mentors mostly are young alums that are enthusiastic or professionals that are enthusiastic to work with our student teams today and tomorrow. And then our judges are accomplished professionals in the field that will be looking over you guys' presentation and providing feedback. And something we're really excited about this year is we are instituting a panel of final judges. And our final judges are actually quite high level in terms of their background. And so we hope all of you guys will take advantage of this weekend and enjoy working with our judges and mentors and our final judges. And so, as I said, compared to last year, this year we have 15 universities. And thank you so much to all of our partners for broadcasting our event, outside of William and Mary. We really want to make sure that this competition is accessible to everyone. And we believe that international development is something that, although undergraduates in most colleges or universities don't have international development classes or international development majors or minor, but through WMGIC, we could provide a platform for students to learn about what international development is by directly working with judges and mentors. And the good thing about our competition is that you don't need any background. And you can be a computer science major, or you can be someone from the business school. And so that's why we also have our 4 different streams that students compete in. And so a little bit about our cash prize this year, which I'm sure is probably one of the biggest reasons all of our student teams signed up. And we, just like last year, we doubled a lot of things. And so last year, the cash prize pool was $2,000, but this year we more than doubled, and now it's $4,750. And so the grand prize, the first place team will win a $1,500 cash prize, and then a $10,000 cash prize. The third place team will win a $700, and the fourth place will win a $500. And so these top 4 teams will be chosen by our panel of final judges as they will be pitching at the closing ceremonies. And the runner-up for each stream will also be able to pitch at our closing ceremony, but they'll each get $250 per team for the cash prize. And so now let me introduce Kieran, who's our External Relations Director, to help introduce our judges and mentors. Kieran?
Hi, Thomas. Thank you for that introduction. So like Thomas mentioned, this year we have 40 judges and mentors, and they're volunteering their time. So we thank them greatly for volunteering their time. They're very busy individuals. And I'm going to have members of our exec team introduce them. So we'll have Grace, who's our external recruitment director, would introduce our governance mentors.
All right, thanks, Kieran. Hi, everyone. So for our mentors in governance, we have Yulia Buinova from the World Bank joining us from Russia today, Erica Garot from the William & Mary Institute for Integrative Conservation, or the IIC, Dylan Patel from DH Infrastructure, and Jamila White, the District of Columbia Commissioner.
Thank you, Grace. And now we're going to move on to the governance judges introduced by our development director, Hannah Garfinkel.
Hello. So we have 4 judges in the governance stream this year. They are Laura Harwig from FinTrack Incorporated, Professor Ranjan Shrestha from William & Mary Department of Economics, Michelle Shop from UNA USA Peninsula Chapter, and Jacqueline Wesley from the Nature Conservancy.
Thank you, Hannah. And now we'll move on to the social entrepreneurship stream. So first, the mentors, we will have Ben, our creative director, introduce them.
Hi, everybody. So we have 4 social entrepreneurship mentors this year, including Heather Elaine Choney from FHI Partners, Gabrielle Hibbert from William & Mary Blockchain, Wesley Garner from Grant Thornton, and Riley Greenwood from Choice Humanitarian.
Thank you, Ben. And I'll be introducing the judges for social entrepreneurship. So we have Jamie Baynishi from Global Health Technologies Coalition, Meredith Perry from USAID, Anna Wold from Diplomatic Courier, and Sarah White from Global Environmental Facility. And now we'll move on to our technology stream. So I will have Kiefer, who's one of our creative directors, introduce our mentors.
So we will have 5 technology mentors. First, we have Jessica Brown from the World Bank, who will be joining us tomorrow from Paris. We have Eiley Chatfield-Taylor from Capital One, Robert Marty from the World Bank, Liz Rosen from Booz Allen Hamilton, and Philip Rothrock from Forest Trends.
Thank you, Kiefer. And now we'll have Giselle, our marketing director, introduce our technology judges.
Yeah, so this year we have 3 technology judges. We have Laura Sauls from the University of Sheffield joining us from the UK. We have Catherine Raffleson from the Society for International Development, its Washington chapter, and we have Professor Rob Rose from the William and Mary Institute for Integrative Conservation.
Thank you, Giselle. And now we'll move on to our business consulting stream. So I'll have our career fair coordinator, Yuche, introduce our mentors for the business consulting stream.
So for the business consulting stream, we have Rohan from Bain, who's actually going to be joining us from Singapore tomorrow. We'll have Tim Duff from Deloitte, Michal Fang from IBM iX, Alexander Levolti from RiskPoint Advisors, and Jeremiah McPelly from KPMG, who is actually also joining us from London tomorrow.
Thank you. And finally, we'll have our internal recruitment director, Mike, introduce our business consulting judges.
Thank you, Kieran. So we have joining us this weekend, Earl Carr from NYU and the Global Institute for Financial Professionals. We have Dan Millison from Transcertegy, and finally, Ann Simmons-Benton from Deepwater Point.
Thank you for introducing Mike, and I'll turn it over to Thomas, who's going to introduce our final judges.
So I'm not sure if Earl's on this call, but earlier on, when we asked Earl to be a judge, Earl actually suggested Craig Broderick, who was actually the former chief risk officer for Goldman Sachs and a distinguished William Mary alum, to be a final judge. And at WMGIC, we always had this vision of having a high-level panel of final judges to come at the end of our competition and work with our students and provide them feedback. And once we brought Craig on, we just had a flow of final judges. So originally we were thinking of a panel of 2 or 3, but now we ended up with 7. So without further ado, we have Alexis Bonnell from Google, who is an emerging technology evangelist. And Alexis was also actually the former chief innovation officer for USAID. And then we have Craig Broderick, who's a corporate director and a former chief risk officer from Goldman Sachs. We also have Dow Martin, who's a manager for global restoration initiatives at the Global Resource Institute. We have Bobby Jefferson, who's a vice president and chief technology officer for DAI Global Health. We have Mackenzie Colgan-Reynoso, who's a principal at Villeray Capital Partners. We have Nick Martin, who's the president and CEO of TechChange. And last but not least, we have Trish Martinelli, who's a deputy director of collaboration portfolio from the National Security Innovation Network. So it actually took us quite some time to to go over these 40 judges and mentors, and I really can appreciate their time even more. And I guess one of the silver linings from the pandemic is that, in the past, we brought these judges and mentors to Williamsburg, but now we can bring them from all over the world, from Russia to the UK, to Singapore, and to France. And so thank you so much to all the 40 judges and mentors, some of which are on the call right now. And without further ado, I'll introduce Hannah, our development director.
Thanks, Thomas. Hi, everyone. My name is Hannah Garfinkel, and I am the development director for WMGIC. And I would just like to take a brief moment to thank this year's sponsors for WMGIC 5. So our platinum sponsors this year are William & Mary Sustainability with the Green Fee Fund, the William & Mary Global Research Institute, and the William & Mary Institute for Integrative Conservation. All three of these sponsors have been absolutely integral to the building of our model and the shaping of WMGIC as it is today. And we can't thank them enough for their contributions and their help during all our hard work this year. Our gold sponsors this year are William & Mary Student Assembly and William & Mary Student Affairs as well. And our silver sponsors this year are the Allen B. Miller Entrepreneurship Center, the William & Mary Cohen Career Center, DH Infrastructure, Society for International Development, Washington Chapter, UCROP Studio for Innovation and Design, and the William & Mary Whole of Government Center of Excellence. Our media partners this year are the Diplomatic Courier and PCDN Social Change Careers. And some of our other campus partners are Tribe Innovation, the William & Mary International Relations Club, and the William & Mary Consulting Club. Thank you so much to all of our sponsors for your contributions, for your support during the year. What we do here would not be possible without you.
Thank you so much to all of our sponsors. And now to one of our sponsors, and not actually just a sponsor, but the person who has been supportive since day one from when Sarah and Samu pitched the idea. So Professor Mike Tierney is the director of William & Mary's Global Research Institute. And Mike has been such a driving force of making sure that WMGIC stays alive every year and make sure that we have the best judges and mentors out there. And although there are multiple case competitions, case competitions around the world at Ivy League schools, but something that's so unique about WMGIC is the sheer amount of judges and mentors that we bring. And Mike, since WMGIC 1 till now, has always been so supportive of helping us bring new WMGIC judges and mentors, helping us keep old ones, and helping us just build our organization stronger. So without further ado, Mike.
Thanks, Thomas. I'll be brief. I know you guys want to get to it. I just want to thank the whole WMGIC team for putting this on this year. It's a great event, and it's gotten better every year. I think you saw it brought back great memories to see that video from last year, but it really was a dose of hope when we needed it. As Thomas said, that was before William & Mary or most universities had gone back to class. We were still flailing around trying to figure out how to unmute ourselves in Zoom. And I learned a lot from watching what the WMGIC team did. I was really quite inspired. Thomas asked me to say a few brief words about GRI. The Global Research Institute is a multidisciplinary hub that supports student faculty research on global challenges. And we currently support 10 different research labs that range from nuclear security all the way over to community development. But some of the most sustainable and impactful projects that we have here at the Global Research Institute came from student ideas. So the two oldest projects, the ones that are still here today, are Aid Data and TRIP. Both of those projects came out of student ideas. One came out of an honors thesis, and one came out of a conversation that I had with a student back in 2003. Anyway, I'm just very glad that you're putting this on, but I'm especially pleased that this year WMGIC has decided to try to take the ideas that they source in this competition and move them beyond the competition. So this is a great 24-hour period. Everybody learns a lot. I love it. But the idea here is that we get some ideas that might stick. So Thomas and his team are planning to connect some of the folks that compete in WMGIC this year, try to connect them to folks at the Institute for Integrative Conservation to try to implement some of these applied research ideas that you all are going to come up with. And so I think it would be great if 10 or 15 years from now, I could say, one of our most sustainable and impactful projects here at the Global Research Institute came out of WMGIC. And I don't doubt that will happen. So thanks very much. Looking forward to the competition.
Thanks, Mike. And the Global Research Institute has been, guiding us, Mike, David, Rebecca, all of them at the GRI, and hand-holding us and sometimes forcing us to make sure that we think about how we can always make our competition better. And so as Mike alluded and kind of announced before we were going to announce it, is that this year we are actually having a research component attached. So Hannah, Kieran, myself, Ben, Kiefer, all of our team has been working really hard throughout the year since last summer, thinking about, how can we move this competition beyond the 24 hours, as Mike mentioned. And so we're really pleased and we're really glad that we have the IIC at William & Mary as our partner. And so our executive team will be the main base research team, but our goal and our hope is to integrate, one or two of the winning teams or a few individuals from these pitches that we get from tomorrow, either from the finalists or someone who is really committed, and to bring them onto our research team. And so throughout the next year, we would be working on this applied research project on the case that Ben and Kiefer are going to announce. Ben and Kiefer?
Hello, everyone. Again, my name is Kiefer, and it's a pleasure to be speaking with you all today. I was a past participant of WMGIC 3 years ago and am now one of the creative directors, along with my colleague, Ben. So without further ado, our case for WMGIC 5 surrounds the palm oil industry in Kalimantan, or the Indonesian side of the island of Borneo. Palm oil is a supply chain of global importance. It can be found in products used every single day, from cooking oil to detergent to biodiesel. To meet the ever-increasing demands, oil palm tree plantations are becoming more common across the world's tropical areas. Astoundingly, around 90% of oil palm trees can be found in Indonesia and Malaysia alone. This is especially true in Kalimantan, which is home to one of the most biodiverse rainforests on the planet. Usually, the name inspires images of orangutans, Bornean pygmy elephants, and other rare wildlife. However, the harsh reality is that Kalimantan's forests are quickly being converted into monoculture oil palm crop. This is linked to a host of environmental issues, from the immediate loss of biodiversity to the greater risk of devastating forest fires in the future. Improvements and solutions to the palm oil industry meet a consistent challenge. The supply chain is incredibly hard to regulate and monitor, such that policy solutions are less likely to resolve problematic practices across the entire industry. The difference between a regulated legal palm oil production and unregulated illegal palm oil production has vast effects on Indonesia's efforts to prevent further deforestation, protect biodiversity and health, and maintain a stable economic commodity and protect labor rights and human rights. The more closed that gap becomes, the more readily effective solutions can address development problems in the palm oil supply chain. Our research on this topic led us to the overarching question: how can we improve regulatory oversight of the Kalimantan palm oil industry? Speaking for Ben and I, as well as the rest of the WMGIC team, we're very excited to see how you approach this question in your presentations, because we believe this is an area lacking in the innovative solutions which WMGIC is built on. Additionally, we are also excited to announce, or I guess this has already been announced, but we are continuing this research, which is super, super exciting. The solutions that you all make can have a very real impact, and good luck. For more information, we now turn to Thomas, who will introduce the facilitated discussion with the keynote speaker today, Michal Zrust. Best of luck, and I hope you like the case.
So now the introduction to our keynote speaker, Michal. And so Michal actually joined us, Ben, Kiefer, and I, a few days ago from Indonesia. And so Indonesia is in my time zone currently, and so it's 5:54 a.m. And so we didn't want to wake him up right now at 5 a.m. to do this for us. And so a few days ago, we actually did a pre-recording with him. And it was such an amazing experience for all of us. And so now just a little bit about Michal before we play this recorded keynote. And so Michal brings over 20 years of expertise working in the conservation, biodiversity, and corporate sustainability space across Asia, Africa, Europe, and Latin America, stretching from the fields to corporate boardrooms. He leads Lestari Capital's strategy for the sustainable commodity sector and spearheading the conceptualization, development, and implementation of innovative conservation finance mechanisms. Michal is an invited expert and representative on numerous technical and governance bodies for certification systems, including the Roundtable on Sustainable Palm Oil and the Forestry Stewardship Council. Michal currently lives in Indonesia, where he has worked extensively for the past 10 years. And so now we're going to play the video of Ben and Kiefer having this discussion with Michal. And so it's actually a bit long. And so we'll play about the first half of it. And we're going to be sharing the link of this keynote to everyone. And we highly encourage, team members, some of them might be reading the case, but others watching the rest of the keynote, because throughout the whole interview, and then especially on the second part, he brings so many ideas for students to jump off of. And so without further ado, now to Ben and Kiefer on
Hi, Michael.
YouTube.
This is Ben. This is Kiefer. We are the co-creative directors of WMGIC conference. We are super excited to have you today and to be able to take some time and ask you questions about the Indonesian palm oil industry and our specific research question, which is, how can we improve regulatory oversight of the palm oil industry in Kalimantan? So just to get us started, can you provide us a bit of background about the palm oil industry in Indonesia and Kalimantan? Why is it such a hot button issue on the global stage? Yeah.
Thanks a lot, guys, for inviting me. It's a real pleasure to be talking to you. I think first of all the way from Indonesia, and I'm really glad to see that this topic is of a lot of interest, especially all the way in the US. I think when we talk about palm oil, I think it's sort of important to start with the commodity itself. Basically, the oil palm as a plant originated from actually comes from Malaysia and Indonesia. The fruit itself, or the palm itself, the product that it generates, is incredibly versatile. The flesh of the fruit is crushed to produce crude palm oil. The seeds are crushed to produce kernel oil, and then after that, what we see is that there are literally dozens and dozens of derivatives that are generated from those two products. And those two derivatives, even the waste products that the palm basically generates, are essentially essential ingredients in quite a lot of consumer products. Really everything, stretching from chocolate sometimes to ice cream, to washing powder, to soap, to shampoo, and so on. Even, of course, in biofuels and also in cooking oil. So, the product is incredibly versatile. It's relatively cheap to produce, and it's also very efficient to produce. It generates about 6 to 10 times as much in terms of volume per hectare as other oils. So the key thing to note here is that there is a huge demand driver of why palm oil is important and why it's relevant to us. About 40% of global consumed oil is basically palm oil. So it's a huge product. The other thing I think that a lot of people aren't necessarily aware of, because the things that we see a lot in the media and the stories about palm oil, which tend to be very negative, sometimes for good reason, is of course that it plays a huge amount of role in national and local economies, basically in Malaysia, in Indonesia, and also elsewhere. So just in Indonesia, since about 2000, about 1 million families have been lifted out of poverty as a result of the palm oil industry directly. It employs about 3 million people worldwide, and it's about a $40 billion industry. So it's a huge economic driver that is important to both national, but then global, but also local economies. So there's really very strong reasons why palm oil is so widespread, why it is important internationally, and why even a lot of NGOs will say, well, actually boycotting palm oil is not the solution, because that demand for the edible oils will just shift somewhere else. And where will that be produced? And what social, environmental, and economic risks are associated with greater production of other palm oil, of other oils, essentially. And so, at the same time, over the last 30 years in Indonesia, we have seen about a 10-fold increase in production. And that obviously brings that just the sheer scale of a land-intensive commodity obviously brings together these kind of environmental, social, and economic issues that we'll talk about.
Thank you so much. And now could you please provide our student teams with a brief overview of the main stakeholders in Kalimantan's palm oil industry?
Mm-hmm. I mean, it's there's a huge list, and so I think maybe we could try to split it up a little bit into sort of on the producer side, right? On the producer side, you will of course have the companies themselves and the owners of those companies. Palm oil, if you look at sort of the 20 top richest people in Indonesia, quite a lot of those families are going to be also involved in palm oil. So there are the concession holders, and the concession holders are both nationals and also international companies, huge conglomerates, whether it's Golden Agri or Sime Darby, or people like Cargill, for example, which are involved, of course, involved also with potentially other commodities as well. Then there are, of course, the smallholder farmers. So about 40% of the production in Indonesia is actually done by smallholder farmers. That is, a really complex topic that I think maybe we can touch on a little bit later on from the regulatory aspect of it, because these are independent, these are small farmers. By definition, they are about less than 50 hectares in the scope of area. But again, there's a huge variety within that. There could be a smallholder farmer with 2 hectares. There could be a smallholder farmer with 50 hectares. There's a huge discrepancy within that. There are, of course, the workers, the local communities. There are surrounding these palm oil concessions. And again, it's very important, I think, for your participants to understand that the palm oil industry isn't just concessions. There is this whole other supply base which is focused on local families, local people, local farmers that could be providing, as I said, about 40% actually of the feedstock that ultimately goes into the supply chain. There are other people who focus on providing microfinance to local communities. There are traders. There are, of course, the communities that surround the concessions or that live in production areas that might be both positively and negatively involved. And then there is really the regulatory side of things, where we are looking at sort of local government, national government, which sets laws, local regulations, which also helps to determine where the locations of the concessions will be, what will be the production area, and so on. There are, of course, NGOs, both local and international, which are also sort of focusing not necessarily on the regulatory side. It can be much broader than that, but really, what does sustainable production of palm oil actually look like? So, and of course, the certification bodies that are trying to push the standards into as broad a base of production as possible. And I think the last thing, and again, this is sort of more important in the consumption countries, is of course the buyers, the processors, the refiners, and then the consumer goods companies that are actually turning that raw product into something that we consume. And they have an enormous influence on what happens on the ground, potentially, although some of them might argue otherwise. But these are not, these are not just Western companies that, for your likes of Procter & Gamble or Unilever or Pepsi or Mars and so on that are going to be sort of influencing the Western market, working within the Western market. But actually, out of the sort of the top 5 countries that are actually utilizing or buying or consuming palm oil, 3 of those are China, India, and Indonesia as well. So those buyers are kind of spread across the world, and they are not one unified body.
That's absolutely fascinating and a great overview to just who's involved in such a complex supply chain and industry and set of social forces. We're curious, what are the key conservation, environmental sustainability challenges linked to palm oil production that proceed from those actors? And what are the main challenges that specifically local populations are facing?
Yeah, so I mean, to be honest, we could talk for hours about this. And there are many many more sort of detailed kind of layers underneath everything that, in this sort of brief summary that I can give you. And I would really encourage actually your participants to spend time actually researching the issues more in depth, really just to sort of delve into this, pick a specific topic, and you'll see that all of these things are sort of slightly interlinked, but they are at the same time, quite discrete, topics and issues that can be sort of pulled out. The media is of course a great tool for this. NGO reports are of course a great tool for looking at what are the main issues and how those issues are changing over time, because a lot of these issues are dynamic in their nature. And they also change as the industry sort of starts to mature and replanting happens and all of these kinds of things. And of course, as the buyer market also changes. But it's important to also have a look at, for example, the company's own websites where they are tracking their grievances, for example, or the certification systems where they're tracking their grievances. And really just to reach out to practitioners within this to sort of learn more about it. So, I mean, this is just a very brief sort of overview, I guess, with regards to some of the issues. This is not an extensive list, of course. So, I mean, again, I think maybe starting on the social side, which of course touches upon local communities. We know, for example, that indigenous groups and local farmers have been displaced by sort of unscrupulous companies, right? There is an issue of land grabbing, whereby there is a poor kind of level of seeking consent of local communities before the development actually takes place, or there is sort of, you could say, negligent or sometimes willful negligence in seeking approval of local communities and at what level of the local community you should seek the approval of when developing, these huge plantations. And some of them, we're looking at sort of 20,000 to potentially 100,000 hectares. This impact, this is a huge impact that will have. It effectively changes the structure of how local people can live, how they make money, and also their dependency on the development itself, right? Because the development might bring with it lots of positives. So, for example, better roads, which a lot of communities want. It might bring together, schools, clinics, all of these things that local communities, feel very positive about. But it also then has negative impacts in, for example, the clearing of the forest reduces their ability to access micronutrients from that forest on which they were dependent on. They lose their hunting grounds, for example. There is a pollution problem in the waterways, can be impacted, and so on and so forth. And of course, given the fact that this is a 25-year cycle, this is a long-term change. This is a generational change that will take place. And of course, there could be replanting that happens. In many cases, under Indonesian regulation, about 20% of the concession should be given to smallholder farmers under what is called a plasma scheme. But sometimes what we find is this kind of I would say it's a system through which local communities are effectively supported to grow palm oil. And these schemes take many different forms. But in a sort of a brief overview, the company will effectively purchase that palm oil, and how involved that community is, whether it's just a profit sharing arrangement or whether the communities actually work on that land, really sort of depends. It varies. But sometimes you can find is that there are very sort of poor commercial agreements between smallholders and the companies that are there. There are of course poor conditions, sometimes child labor issues, even forced labor has been found in some of these areas. And I would encourage people to have a look at some of the grievances that come up in the certification standards. A lot of them are about labor, and they will get a little bit more sort of details on this. So, again, there are benefits in terms of economic benefits, access to healthcare, access to education. In many cases, the companies effectively take on the role of that is missing from the local government. But of course, that has severe kind of social issues and fundamental structural changes within the communities, the local economies, and potentially within that basically just last for generations, and potentially are irreversible, right? I mean, the other aspect of it, if we look at, for example, in Kalimantan, where there is about 6 million hectares of palm oil plantations, we know that according to the Borneo Atlas, about 1.4, 1.5 million hectares of forest have been lost since about 2000. There is a link between palm oil and deforestation. And certainly a historic one. What we're seeing now is that this is changing. Palm oil driven deforestation is declining really quite significantly. There is still deforestation, but in terms of who is responsible for this, it seems that there is a significant year-on-year decline in terms of the concessions, so these industrial estates being responsible for deforestation. There are, of course, exceptions to it. Papua is a very big example where you get one company that might clear 100,000 hectares of forest, right? And of course, all of these things and the development on peat, which is now banned under the Roundtable on Sustainable Palm Oil. This releases huge amounts of carbon dioxide, of course, into the atmosphere. It increases the risk of wildfire, and of course, that biodiversity impact and human-wildlife conflict. We don't really need to discuss that. You lose such a huge area of forest. The biodiversity impact is of course devastating. The problem, of course, is, and this is maybe why we don't talk about rapeseed oil, or other types of oils, is that it is much more sudden in these tropical countries, and of course the countries where palm oil is grown are mega diverse forested countries, tropical countries where the forest is really very important for biodiversity and very important globally, and this is also one of the reasons why it's such a big issue compared to potentially other forms of oils. So I mean, it's very. I have to say, it's very dynamic. We know, for example, that more of the deforestation is now potentially being caused by smallholder farmers that are kind of that are in these forest frontier areas, rather than large oil companies. It is also shifting geographically. There's more deforestation happening in Papua, Western Africa, and so on. And different actors might be sort of driving this as well. Yeah. So maybe that's just a very brief overview of very complex issues.
Yeah, these conservation environmental challenges we asked about are definitely very complex, and we appreciate the insight into it.
Okay, so that was the first few questions, and just to give you guys a brief overview of the other questions, so for you to watch the video, the other questions that Kiefer and Ben asked were about supply chain, about the roundtable on sustainable palm oil, which you guys will learn a lot more about. And so Michal actually served on its board of governors. And so he talks a little bit about that. And he talks about his work at Lestari Capital and the future of sustainable palm oil and key areas of innovation. And lastly, he gives some tips and advice to students. And the good thing is that we actually pin the different questions on YouTube. So once you access that link, you can easily see, you can easily move on to the different questions that you want to watch his answers for. And this YouTube video will be on the schedule on our website right afterwards.
Hi, Michael.
And so as we were talking, the sun actually came up in Taiwan. And so I just wanted to share a picture with you guys. When Michael was doing his presentation, it's now the morning. And now to Kiefer.
No, this is to me. I'm the other co-creative director, Ben. So going off from just to back on a bit, just to thank Michael again for taking the time to speak to all of us. Kiefer and I learned a lot, and we hope once you guys get to watch the rest of the facilitated discussion, you'll learn just as much as well. So going off of that main research question that Kiefer introduced last time, we've come up with different sub-research questions for each of the individual streams for you to think about and incorporate into your solution design. So for governance, we have how can Indonesia and/or Kalimantan governments better regulate the environmental, labor, and economic problems associated with the palm oil industry? In social, we have how can we support and maintain local groups and activism in Kalimantan's palm oil industry? And tech, we have how can we improve transparency in the Bornean palm oil industry supply chain through applied technology or data? And in business consulting, we ask how can you help local or international businesses improve sustainability of their palm oil production without affecting local economic opportunity? What would the value proposition be for your solution? So this comes a bit out of the just changes we made year on year. In the past, what we've done in terms of streams is we've asked each team to come up with a solution with an organization with a set amount of money and a set amount of time. This year, we're doing it a bit differently, where we are asking you to base your solution and work from an existing organization. And so if you're in governance, social entrepreneurship, or technology streams, we want you to address who you are, whether you're a student researcher in national, regional, local government, and who your innovation is benefiting. If you're in business consulting, please be sure to address who you represent, an existing or startup firm and your client. There is detailed judging criteria for each of these stream types in your case booklet. There are also example organizations that Kiefer and I, and with the help of the rest of the team, have on offer for you all to consider, although we also want to encourage you all to look at other example organizations in the field that you're working in and interested in. So back to you, Thomas. Thank you.
Thanks, Ben. And now we will have August, who's our event director, to wrap this up and talk a little bit about judging criteria, rules, and then our event schedule. August?
Thank you, Thomas. So yeah, just going to start with the judging criteria, which if you've participated in the past, you'll notice looks a little bit different this year. So we still have 6 categories: sustainability, environmental considerations, fiscal pragmatism, local context, creativity, and logistics. And just to give you a brief summary of what those mean, sustainability is focused on the sustainability of your project. So does it have performance metrics and evaluation incorporated into it? How is it going to be phased out? Is there room for future growth at the end of 1 year? Is this project still going to be able to continue on? So those are sort of the things that you want to consider. For environmental considerations, are you aware of any environmental impact that your project might have? Have you taken it into account? What is the short and long-term regional impact on the ecology? And then for fiscal pragmatism, what's the cost-benefit analysis of your project? Do you make responsible use of your funding? What is the economic viability? Local context is, if you're working with indigenous groups, are you, how do you take them into account with your solution? Is there accountable oversight, and by whom? Does your project serve an existing local demand? Is there local appeal? Stuff like that. Creativity. Not only are you showing strategic thinking that utilizes local resources, but are you being inventive? Is your solution different from traditional approaches? Like, what unique technologies are you using? And then logistics, sort of, is this a potentially effective solution to address the problem? Do you follow the rules of the competition, and stuff like that? And then, yeah, going into the rules and guidelines, 1 year time frame. So you'll identify your own organization, and you'll have 1 year to implement your solution. So whereas I talked about with sustainability, you might be encouraged to have a project that exists after a year. You still have to have a project implemented in 1 year. And another rule is, Kiefer and Ben already talked about this, but identifying your organization, right? And sticking to that organization and sort of the laws that govern that organization, right? If you choose to be the Department of Forestry of Indonesia, you have to follow the same rules that the Department of Forestry would be following. No outside assistance. Once the case is released at 6:30 to 11:30 the next morning, and you're working on it, your mentors will be there to assist you. WMGIC staff can answer any questions you have about language or rule clarifications, but no outside assistance beyond that. However, you are encouraged to research as much as you want, take full advantage of the keynote speaker, take full advantage of all the knowledge that your mentors have. And then I just want to reiterate some important deadlines. So by 11:59 p.m. tonight, you're going to submit a short blurb just outlining your project, like, what is your idea, what are you thinking of doing? And then by 11:30 on Saturday, you're going to submit your slide deck for your presentation. And then just to quickly go over the role of mentors and judges. So your mentors are going to be coming in and out of your Zoom rooms this evening and tomorrow, Saturday morning. And so you'll get to talk to each mentor twice, or if a mentor is just coming in on Saturday, you'll talk to them on Saturday. But they're industry experts, and they're volunteering their time to help you. And we encourage you to use their advice, as much as you see fit. They're knowledgeable, they have expertise in not only in international development, but in some of the specific streams that you'll be a part of. So, ask them questions, let them help you. And then for judges, as Thomas already outlined, again, industry professionals, you'll present in front of the judging panel at a pre-assigned time slot between 12 and 3 on Saturday. And you'll have a 10-minute presentation with 5 minutes of Q&A. And from there, each stream of judges will pick a finalist and a runner-up. And then the finalists will go on and present in front of the final judges, who will also ask them questions, and they'll deliver a reduced pitch of 5 minutes with follow-up questions. And then the runners-up will also get to do a 3-minute pitch during the closing ceremony. And then quickly, I'm just going to outline the schedule. So we are right now at opening ceremony. In just a few short minutes, we'll release the case. And then you'll have 50 minutes to read it over, start thinking. And then at 7:20 will be your first mentoring session. And mentors will be popping in and out of your Zoom rooms until around 10 o'clock this evening. And then they'll start again on Saturday. But while mentors are coming in and out, we'll be holding office hours with Kiefer and Ben, who can answer any questions you might have about the case and offer clarifications. And there's an office hours from 8 to 9, and then another office hours from 10 to 11. I will also be sitting in on the first office hours to clarify rules or explain the judging criteria if you would like help with that. From there, you have that deadline that I mentioned, 11:59 tonight. You'll submit your short project description. And then on Saturday, mentor sessions start again at 8:20. Then you'll submit your project at 11:30 and jump straight into presentations at 12. And from there, you will go to a mingling hour with your mentors. And this is an opportunity to network with them again. Maybe ask them, career advice or graduate school advice. How did they get into the industry? Things of that nature. And then we'll end with the closing ceremony where finalists will be announced and they will give their pitches and winners will be declared. And then I'm just going to go over the mentoring schedule just so that you guys understand how it works. So looking at the governance one right now, they all look about the same, but they're the Zoom link that you submitted earlier this week is linked in here. So a mentor is going to go, they're going to click in there and you'll let them in. It's scheduled so that there is your Friday time and your Saturday time. So 7:20 p.m. on the 19th today, and then 8:20 a.m. on the 20th tomorrow. And they'll come in for 15 to 20 minutes and you'll talk with them. Then they'll hop out, they'll move on to the next group, and you'll have your sessions spread out over the course of about 3 hours. Now, the judging schedule, as we said, pre-assigned. These are your judges. You can read their bios on the website, but that Zoom room is going to be the one you enter to present in front of them. You will run your own slide deck, and you'll present for 10 minutes and then Q&A for 5. And this is, and the order is there for when you will be presenting.
Mike and Grace.
All right. Hi, everyone. I'm Grace, and I serve as the External Recruitment Director for WMGIC 5. Again, we are absolutely thrilled to see so many teams from so many universities joining us today, so thank you all for being here. If you have any questions or concerns this weekend, please feel free to reach out to me via Slack. I will also be checking on you guys later tonight while you're working, so I will see you then. Best of luck, everyone.
Yeah, I'm Mike. I'm the Internal Recruitment Director. Won't take up too much of your time here, but for all the William & Mary teams, I'm sorry for sending you so many emails the past couple of weeks, but happy to see you guys here competing with us this weekend. Yes, I'll be your point person if you have any trouble with anything going forward this weekend, whether it be Zoom links, schedules, just general where you need to be. So feel free to shoot me a message in the Slack, but yeah, looking forward to a really great competition. So good luck to everybody.
Thanks, Mike and Grace. And so our website now has actually been updated. And so if you scroll under WMGIC 5, you can see our program and our case if you click on it. And if you are in our if you click on our schedule, you could find our keynote recording updated, our case, the same case updated too. And then if you're wondering where to find the mentoring schedule and the judging schedule, and if you don't want to dig through your emails, that is also on our website schedule. And so without further ado, we're going to end the opening ceremonies here and to let everyone have their time to read their case. And so the first mentoring sessions will start at 7:20, and the participants need to be in their Zoom rooms as the mentors will be there. And we shouldn't let the mentors go into a Zoom room with no one. And so the participants are free to go to their own Zoom rooms. And then the mentors and judges, please check Slack to head off to the mentor and judges networking and brief, where you'll be able to learn a bit more about our guidelines and spend an hour talking to your fellow judges and mentor. And now here's a link to our case and our website, and y'all are free to go. Thank you so much for attending the opening ceremonies, and best of luck.
Thank you.